All right, now we're going to talk to Harold Meyerson. He's a columnist for the Washington Post. He's also an editor-at-large for the American Prospect, and they've got a new series coming out that we're going to talk about. Harold, welcome to the Young Turks.
Great to be here.
All right, great to have you. All right, the special report you guys are going to have is called Not Just More Jobs, but Good Jobs. All right, I'm in. So how do we do that?
Well, the problem sort of underlying a lot of what's wrong with the American economy is that incomes have more or less stagnated for all but the rich over the last couple of decades. And the kind of jobs that used to be associated with the kind of upward mobility that was around when I was a kid, which was in ancient times, or more likely the 50s and 60s and 70s, that seems to be gone. Income distribution is such that essentially all productivity gains just go to the wealthiest 1%. So what can the government do about this? Well, I mean, there are three things. The first two of which we're for, but that's not what this report is about. Those are, first of all, just getting a handle on this mega recession, which is a very deep, profound recession, not the likes of which we haven't seen since the 30s. The second would be the Employee Free Choice Act, which would enable workers to join unions without risking their jobs and God knows what else, because it's almost impossible to join a union in the private sector at this point in America. And the administration tried that with the Employee Free Choice Act, but of course they ran up against a 60-vote barrier in the Senate, and they didn't get there. And so, is there anything the administration, the Obama administration, can do by itself without having to go to Congress, actually to improve the quality of American jobs? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because for two basic reasons. First of all, the federal government is the biggest purchaser of all kinds of goods in America. About 22% of the American workforce actually works somewhere along the supply chain for goods that are purchased by the federal government. So the federal government can have criteria for the kind of jobs it essentially is subsidizing. It can look at firms that violate minimum wage laws and maximum hour laws and say, we don't want to do business with you. But right now, the Pentagon gets a large number of military uniforms, for instance. They have to do this within the United States and its territories, so they go to Puerto Rico, where wages are low and where labor violations are, known to happen, and they get a lot of uniforms made there. Well, I don't know why our tax dollars should be supporting sweatshops in Puerto Rico. So we kind of go through the litany of things the government buys and also of just violations that the Labor Department could enforce and say, the administration by itself, without depending on whoever that 60th senator may be, can actually make some changes that would upgrade working conditions and pay in the United States.
Well, that's interesting. So how about the contractors, the military contractors? Would they have to hire American, or could they still hire South African hitmen?
Well, military contractors, I don't know per se, would be affected by this. That gets us into another issue of domestic content. But if we are employing the contractors and they are violating, certain basic labor laws, we shouldn't be going to them. Now, that said, the vast majority of companies with which the federal government has contracts aren't military contractors. Oh, of course, you and I know the number of military contractors just started ballooning when the Bush administration came into office in 2001, privatizing our wars. That said, it's still a very small subset of the groups with which the government has contracts. So the government has contracts with everybody for everything.
So let me understand it a little bit better, right? So let's say the federal government buys a lot of cars, which I'm sure it does, right? Are you saying they've got to buy American cars, or is it even more specific? They've got to buy American cars that were made in America. We can't have GM building cars in Mexico and then selling it to the U.S. government.
Well, that's a bit of a separate issue from the one we discussed directly. That's an issue of domestic content, which I am all for, and which I am old enough to remember the debates on back in the 1970s. And those of us who were arguing at the time that we really should, privilege products made in the United States were sort of routinely hooted at, up until about the last year, when the economy totally tanked, when people realized we'd been getting along on bubbles, when China and Germany, which are the two great manufacturing powers in the world, were the only two great powers to come through the Great Recession looking pretty good, with their economies growing. And we're stuck with an economy of which only 11% of the GDP and only 11% of the workforce is involved in manufacturing. So I would be all in favor of procurement policies. Now, the federal government does have procurement policies that favor domestic-made cars and things like that. The problem, of course, as you know, is that a typical, quote, American-made car has all kinds of components made everywhere on Earth. You know, I mean, the supply chains of our major global corporations go everywhere, include everything, and usually, you know, take the product from where it's cheapest.
So, but Harold, I'm a little concerned that we're just chipping away at the problem here, right? The main heart of the problem is that we don't, among other reasons, we just don't have a manufacturing base anymore. So
no, that's a huge problem. I agree. Now, the Obama administration has taken some good but small steps. For one thing, there was all this news about this wind farm in Texas that was getting money from the Department of Energy to get this wind farm up and running, and then some enterprising reporters found out that 30 workers would be running the wind farm, and 2,000 workers would be building the wind turbines in China. So the administration created a tax credit for green manufacturing here, and that was going to be part of the second stimulus package, which, guess what, never passed Congress. So there's an interesting footnote to this, which is that the Steelworkers Union made so much noise on Capitol Hill about this being an outrageous thing that the Chinese manufacturer of the wind turbines a couple of Fridays ago signed a deal with the steelworkers to actually build the factory in Texas, which is where the wind farm will be. So the government may not be there, but at least the Steelworkers Union is there.
All right, but, you know, we're, I think, going to ultimately wind up with the same problem, which is that whether it's the Obama administration that you think should act unilaterally in the ways that they can using their power, or whether it's Congress, that ultimately they're never going to challenge that corporate power, right? And the corporations are going to have the motivation to move jobs outside the U.S. because it's cheaper for them. So I think that's the fundamental problem, that two-step issue right there.
I agree with you.
So how do you fix that? I mean, one, I personally don't think you can fix the fact that it's cheaper abroad, right? But we can, in my opinion, fix how much corporate power has a stranglehold on our politics. But I don't think Obama's doing that at all.
No, I agree with you that they're way behind on this thing, and that's partly because the big fix really isn't on their agenda. Now, that said, you know, most Americans say, well, we can't compete with China, everything's about low wages, but nobody contemplates Germany. Germany, which is a country that's only one-fifth our size, nonetheless has the second highest trade surplus in the world, right after China, and they've done that by maintaining and upgrading a manufacturing sector that's thriving, even though they have a higher rate of unionization than we do, and they have higher pay in manufacturing than we do. But, you know, they've had a whole different series of policies, largely related to the politics of the German Social Democratic Party. Corporations can't get away with the kind of offshoring there that they get away with here. It requires a whole restructuring of our politics and, in some sense, of our ideology as well.
Wait a minute.
That's a great point. So, wait a minute now. Talk to me about Germany, because honestly, I hadn't thought nearly enough about that. So, how do they do it? What's the magic answer?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, every German corporation has an equal number of labor as well as management side members of its board of directors. Secondly, the Germans have this whole part of their banking industry that are these locally based savings banks. They've got 431 of those the last time I looked. And these savings banks don't muck around in capital markets like ours. They basically stay in their hometown, and they're devoted to sort of studying their hometown industries, and there are a lot of kind of small to middling manufacturers in Germany, and, saying, okay, let's sit down with you, let's see how you can upgrade your product, let's see how you can make the best this or the best that in the world. And they give them loans, and German manufacturing is just booming. It's high-skilled, highly specialized stuff. And in other words, they have a financial sector that actually serves Main Street, not itself, which is quite the reverse of our financial sector.
So then, once we realize that, because I always try to get to the root of the problem, then is task number one actually to go and change the way our financial sector is structured? Because as long as these guys keep sucking all the money out for some derivatives gambling and it doesn't go into our economy, well, certainly we're not going to pick up the manufacturing. Certainly we're not going to do any of the things that you're suggesting or that Germany's doing so successfully.
I would say, yeah, that's task number one. And task number two would be to take the advice of Andy Grove, the legendary former CEO of Intel, who wrote a cover story in Business Week a couple of months ago saying, look, this nation is doomed unless we revive our manufacturing sector. And his proposal was putting a tariff on all offshore goods that come back into the country and using that money specifically to help industries gear up their production here. Because, we still lead the world in inventions, but then we offshore the manufacture of those inventions somewhere else. And I think Grove, who's got a lot more credibility on this score than I do, says that we really need to just put a tariff on the offshore stuff and put it into building up manufacturing here at home. So I think that would be a huge step forward. And, of course, that would be a political battle like, just an immense political battle as well.
All right. And I want to ask you one more question. We're talking to Harold Meyerson. He's a columnist for the Washington Post and editor-at-large for the American Prospect, and they're going to run this series, not just more jobs, but good jobs. Harold, let's keep it real. Is there any chance that Obama is going to do any of this? I mean, when you tell me half the board is labor, I laugh and laugh and laugh. Imagine Tim Geithner and Larry Summers suggesting that to Obama. Inconceivable. So, I mean, was he joking about all that change stuff? He's not going to do any of this change, is he?
Like I said, they do some good small stuff around the margins, and by and large, they don't go beyond that. But let's also get real. The only time you've had really serious change in this country, say the 1930s and the 1960s, it wasn't simply Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson acting by themselves. There were major movements all over the country pushing the president to do the major changes. And absent that, Obama or anyone isn't going to, begin to address these kinds of problems. So, the fault is not simply in the administration. It's, to take a line from Julius Caesar, in ourselves.
Well, not in me, because I keep pushing him, and then Gibbs keeps getting upset. So, well, if that's the answer, and they keep saying that, well, then I'm good. I'm gonna keep on pushing him, and
you do that.
See how that works out. All right, Harold Meyerson from American Prospect. Very interesting conversation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Young Turks. We'll be back.